Good evening and welcome to Health Second Opinion. Dr. Chad McDill here with you. Going to be going through nutrition and how it affects the immune system. And, again, we continue this pandemic thing, and we're all trying to adapt and overcome to the fact that this is dominating the world stage, and so might as well use it for something positive, meaning better self-control and focusing on the reality of cause of the problem versus the symptoms. It's a really I just can't say enough about looking at the causation, cause over condition. It's always about cause over condition. And we're continuing our thoughts on the fact that in 120 days, your body's going to be brand new with the living blood inside of it has been regenerated, replenished, however you want to think about it. The old red blood cells have died off. The new red blood cells have formed, and your body's pumping new blood. So what's that new blood going to be built out of? One of the first things that I always suggest is that, you cannot directly change something that you haven't even measured. So if you're going to make changes and try to yield results, it can't be just how you look, right? Pretty people have a bad habit of dropping dead of a heart attack the next day. I think the guy from The Biggest Loser proved that, the ultimate point, right? And so, he almost died of the widowmaker, but supposedly he was healthy. Obviously, he wasn't healthy. Otherwise, he would not have dropped dead almost. So then we get to the other thing, which is, it's not just how you feel, because ask somebody who has a terminal diagnosis of cancer how they felt 6 months ago or 3 months ago usually, and they felt fine. And yet that cancer was growing for how many ever years. And so today is about exploring the nutritional rules and what you can do to give yourself the best odds. So a complete blood panel with things like added to it, things like LDH and ESF, then your leptin, your insulin levels, because you don't want just your blood glucose and your insulin. You want your A1C. You want that insulin. You want to see how hard your body is having to produce insulin to be able to maintain whatever blood sugars you have, and then look at what that's been in the long term with your A1C. Then you want to be checking for other inflammatory markers and things like that, because again, you cannot change directly change what you haven't measured. So the idea is really just to understand where you're at from an internal plumbing situation, measuring that blood work, and then making your nutritional and lifestyle changes so that, in 120 days, when that blood's all brand new, you can measure what your results were and you can make a decision on how effective your plan was, and then modify it to get the results that you want, or just continue to stay on the path, feeling very validated, not just by how you look, not by how you feel, but literally how the blood is changing. Understanding that a lot of your nutrition can be a source of toxicity. And so, on an everyday level, most people who are consuming the standard American diet are consuming a large portion of their toxins that they're exposed to. And why do I reference this? There's inherited gene mutations, and then there's acquired gene mutations. And even the CDC admits that at least 95% of the genetic mutations that people get are acquired, meaning it's the environment that you put your genes in that did the damage to the genetics, so that then even the genetic causes of things like cancer are actually caused by the lifestyle that changed the genetics. Sit with that for a second. it does yield a little bit of personal responsibility. 95% of cancer due to the environment and lifestyle. So how are we going to minimize your exposure through nutrition? Number one, make sure you're cooking in the right things. It's easy. You know, the only good things to be cooking in are cast iron, stainless steel, glass. That's it. All your aluminum pots and pans and all your plastic storage containers. Let's take a look at this. There's some research here that, let's see if I can get the exact percentage. Yes. Okay. So looking at food and storage containers and things like that, they took a group of people and let them eat canned soup for 5 days in a row, and compared them to a group that ate fresh soup made by fresh ingredients for 5 days. And the group that ate the canned soup had 1,221% higher levels of BPA plastic in their bloodstream. BPA, known cancer causer, right? Yeah, it's because it's in the food lining containing of those containers in canned goods. So it's just an example of how potent 1,221% more just from eating the soup. That's not including if you were putting warm food into plastic containers and storing them, and you're using your leftovers in these storage containers that are also leaking. You know, if they had added that into the group and they had looked at other things, then wow, it would have been even more drastic. Another thing, you know, when we're looking at this and looking directly, stepping into our nutrition is that so many people, a concept of toxicity induced from nutrition is that so many people have leaky gut syndrome, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, irritable bowel syndrome, all forms that wound the internal environment of the digestive tract, therefore creating a weakened barrier, therefore more, you know, bad bacteria, more viruses, more poison from what we're trying to keep out, and using that barrier as a filter to what gets in is getting through that we don't want. So that's going to create a toxicity issue. And so there's another thing. You know, I think in nutrition and things, another big deal is that, and you can look at these things, these very last 3 consumer reports that came out. One was on supplements, one was on water quality, and one was on foods and pesticides and fruits and vegetables. And they were looking at that it was just amazing the number of pesticides that were even banned that were still being on our vegetables today because they're actually still in use. And so when we look at these things, you're looking to minimize those exposures. And so many people will go back to the myth that counting calories is a way of doing things versus looking at the nutritional value of those calories. So that's another myth I want to blow up, that they're not the same, because, you know, in this reference to toxicity and, you know, dealing with what's causing the problems, again, cause over condition. Each person, whether it's irritable bowel, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, whatever, there's a cause to that. Figuring out that cause to the individual and removing that from from their body and from their, I guess, toxic burden will allow their body to have a better chance of healing that. And the idea then becomes time, right? Did you get to it in time before so much damage happened that it was in an unrecoverable state? And so earlier the better. So then we want to move into that dismissing the nutritional, that calories is the effectiveness. So handful of almonds and a Twinkie are the same number of calories Yet the Twinkie has no nutritional value, and the almonds have great source of many vitamins and minerals and nutrients. And so you can see the obvious glaring contradiction. The reality is that folks, to minimize your toxic burden and to maximize your nutrition, it is a whole food diet. It is that at least 80% of your nutrition is coming from whole food, fruits and vegetables, and then you're adding in the rest of the percentage, 20, from lean meats and fish and nuts and seeds and dairy. That's the ratio. And if you think of that, the nutrition that you're having is the building blocks to which you will build the new you, that new blood, then you understand that you, I wish you could see some of the slides I'm referencing. They're beautiful. And one of these days we're going to get it where we could share the screen here and let you see these slides directly. That's the next level of Health a Second Opinion coming soon. Stay tuned. Then, what are some of the general just help as far as nutrition is concerned is the quote, the things to remember. Cut the carbs and then trash the toxins and clean up or perfect your proteins and fix your fats. So fix the fats, perfect your proteins, trash the toxins, and cut your carbs. And I think that those can just be right there, some of the very things that if you focused on those things in general, you're going to be doing a great service to you and your family with the fact that, when you start doing all this, it might be a really good idea if you're going to fix your nutrition and you're going to get your blood work done so that you know what your nutrient values are, you know your inflammatory markers, you know your cholesterol, you know what's going on and how your lifestyle in the past has gotten you to where you are, and you want to measure your progress on blood work and establish your big why of why you're doing this. It's not just to look good at the beach. Maybe it's to live a longer life with your family, but why? Because that's gonna give you the greatest level of satisfaction and passing on a wonderful life legacy to the rest of your family. Whatever that big why is for you, to avoid cancer, but why do you want to avoid cancer? Is it so that you can live longer and help more people? Whatever that is, establish that big why, and then really start, thinking on it. Anytime you're looking at compromising those values to which you're trying to reach into the next level. Again, with cause over the condition, thinking that if you're having a weight problem, then what's the cause? It's not just about losing the weight. It's what's causing your body to not be able to have a proper lean body mass. And so, pardon me. As we move forward, one of the first things to change, of course, is your meats. We want to fix the fats and perfect the proteins at the same time. Your omega fat ratios. Most people have, just like with cholesterol, have demonized omega-6 fatty acid, but it is an essential fatty acid. Omega-6, 3, and 9 are all essential. And you can't live without them, and you can't make them internally. So you have to get them from your nutrition. The problem with omega-3, 6, and 9 is the ratio gets out of balance. Omega-6 being a much longer lasting fat with a better shelf life, it gets left in food, processed foods, and then omega-3 and 9 get filtered out because they have low shelf life. And so in storage of commercially bought food, you're going to become in a ratio of, way out of balance. The ratio should be, if we're looking at omega-6 to omega-3, should be somewhere between 1:1 to 4:1. That's the spectrum. Most Americans are walking around at least at 20:1, if not 50:1 in their ratio. And that's because they're eating commercial meat. and it's not lean meat. It doesn't have great, it's the difference between if Usain Bolt, I'm just guessing, making this up, but let's say that I think he's like 6'2", probably like 180 pounds or something, and there's him at 6'2", 180 pounds. And then there's the other person who weighs 180 pounds, who's only 4'11". And you take a guess at which one has a better lean body mass ratio, right? And same thing with a commercially raised cow versus a grass-fed pasture-raised cow. Their meats are completely different. The free-range organic chicken is much different than the, raised in a house chicken. So we got to fix these things, because not just because it's minimizing our toxicity, that's enough of a reason. But because when we do that, we also get a better omega fat ratio, which helps our body. And let me give you an idea of how valuable that is. Your brain is approximately, some people say 70, some people say up to 90% fat. So if you're using toxic fats, and your body's constantly regenerating and making sure and fixing things and making sure that those neurons have their proper insulation in the myelin sheath, and the gray matter of your brain is being constantly maintained, what's it being fixed with? What's it being maintained with? Is it trans fat? Is it hydrogenated oils? Well, then you know why you have brain fog, right? It's one more reason, right? So when we look at these things, you want to focus on wild-caught fish and natural sources of dairy. Be leery of your toxic accumulation in fish. You want to be getting wild-caught, not wild-caught farm-raised. You really got to read labels today, folks. It's just absolutely absurd. Nutrition's about as bad as politics these days, with the way that they're trying to manipulate our way of thinking. Is that just about anything on a label is legal. It's kind of sad. That's not kind of sad. It's absolutely almost overwhelmingly tragic that that food label reading has become such a must to even understand what you're consuming. So fish toxically accumulate a lot of things like mercury, and so also depending on where they're raised, just always wild caught, not wild caught farm raised or farm raised. They're raised in typically plastic based ponds that are fed things like dog food and things that they don't normally eat, like corn and soy and things like that. So, so what are some ideas of some good fats? Good fats come from avocados. They come from animal products that are grass-fed. Nuts and seeds, raw nuts and seeds, great sources of fat. Good oils, things like olive oil. Think of this, single item oils, things like avocado oil, grapeseed oil, olive oil, coconut oil. These vegetable oils and things like that, they're extracted under high heat and then typically forced under high pressure with hydrogen. And so they're hydrogenated, and these oils are then toxic from the beginning. And so so what are the first things you could do is this week, you want to get healthier, you want to change blood work, you want to try to move your nutrition in the right level, would be to remove your damaged fats. Get away from your commercial meats, your deli meats that are high in nitrates and nitrites, things like salami and pepperoni and ham and things like that. These deli meats are typically pressed, put together meats that are very full of nitrates and nitrites, which are preservatives, which are known cancer causers. And so if you can find at Whole Foods from time to time, they'll have a roast beef and they'll have a turkey breast, and you can go to the counter and get them to slice that into sandwich meat. And what an amazing way, right? Cook your own turkey breast, slice it up, put it into storage containers, preferably not plastic bags, and you put them in the freezer, freeze them, and then bring them out a week at a time. And, there you go. There's your sandwich meat for your kids, and it's turkey, and it's not pressed meat. It's a great way of doing things. Want to minimize one of the greatest dietary risks of toxicity today from a nutritional standpoint. Pardon me. is sugar. Sugar is absolutely, average human being today, average adults consuming around 157 pounds of sugar every year. That's in the form of granulated sugar, and also when you look at, they put these things together like high fructose corn syrups, probably our biggest source of sugar nowadays. And it's just amazing that folks consume that much. Really, I think that's like a whole human being. It's, it's ridiculous. But that's the standard American diet, which has, by the way, let's just kind of take a moment for brief reality check, if you will. And that is that the standard American is born, and by the time they get to adulthood, let's just go with age 35. The average adult is on at least one prescription medication. They have at least 2 chronic health conditions, and they are predicted to be chronic degenerative diseases, to which 3/4 of the average Americans will die of heart disease or cancer. And they will spend the last 20 years of their life possibly going bankrupt, seeing as how bankruptcy, number one cause is major medical bills, that they will spend their savings that they work so hard for and go bankrupt trying to save their life that they paid somebody to destroy by eating the commercial food and doing the things that the lifestyle that yields them this result. That, the average person, and by age 65 is on 13 different medications. And it's just, it's really tragic. And that's what the future looks like if you act like the standard American, and so that doesn't sound very good to me. And hence why I'm on this show, and why we go to the fact that, I know this stuff. And me and my family, we utilize it. And I come onto this show to share it with you because I want you to have the same opportunities as I do. And that is to raise a healthy, very vibrant, loving, energetic, excited, beautiful family. And if that's not you, then that's what it is. We're making our choices constantly. So back to nutrition. So many people, they think that, so the standard American diet, high in processed food, high in commercial dairy, high in commercial meats, high in sugary drinks, Mountain Dews and Red Bulls on a daily basis, and Monsters, and, going through the drive-through at McDonald's. Hold on. In case you hadn't seen that before, that's a McDonald's French fries, and that's 2 buns. There's another one right there. Yeah, there you go. There it is. So that's 4 years old. It's pretty ridiculous, right? It's been sitting there 4 years. A little girl just ate some of the fries less than a month ago. Didn't even get sick. So every time you go through the drive-through, think toxicity and think not real food and poison, and then just simply pull out and go hungry and go to work. You'll be way better off just pound water and make it to lunch and go someplace different, and or have packed your lunch, and or that's even better, right? Because at least you know what's in there. And so, and then the other thing is that for a nutritional standpoint, the best strategy is that whole food. And so, one of the things that we don't eat enough fresh, raw vegetables. One of the greatest groups is the cruciferous vegetables. As a matter of fact, I'm going to list off some of the anti-angiogenic foods, things like cauliflower and Brussels sprouts and broccoli. I'll share a tidbit with you. This enzyme in there called sulforaphane has been shown to directly inhibit cancer. It's one of the reasons it's called anti-angiogenic, meaning it's actually inhibiting the cancer's ability to recruit blood flow to the cancer. So the cancer cells know that they need more sugar to survive, so they produce these enzymes that encourage blood vessels to develop towards that tumor. And the foods that fight that and the foods that shut down that type of activity are things like garlic and ginger and turmeric and things. Just there's so many of the whole foods that are out there that show these properties. Apples and parsley, cilantro. There's so many things that you can add to your nutrition. Something lately, if we're going to use our nutrition to build immunity and fight cancer, then, that turmeric is helping shut down inflammation. We know that zinc is something to be consumed. And I'll touch base here for the last minute that the 5 most common deficiencies are the whole spectrum of multivitamins and minerals, the vitamin D, and then a multi-B, and then your magnesium. And so when we look at these things, these deficiencies that people have are because of the standard American diet. And one of the best ways would be to supplement in the daily essentials, which again is the magnesium, the multivitamin and mineral, the multi-B, the D. And for some reason, I'm having trouble pulling up that 5th one in my head at this very moment. But to continue, the idea is that if you don't eat the 5 to 7 servings of whole fresh fruits and vegetables every day, you have these nutritional deficiencies, to which is very important to compensate for. And that's really what supplementation is for. It's not meant to replace your nutritional needs. It's meant to supplement your nutrition. And so don't think of the supplements as treating the condition. It's not about the condition. It's about the cause of the condition. And most of these causes are deficiencies, toxicities, and or lack of function, and utilizing your nutrition to help you remove those causes is the mindset behind real living nutrition that allows you to reach your max potential. And so for those of you at home who want your doctor to be involved with you to help you reach your capacity instead of just treating your diseases while you continue to get worse. There you go. There's the phone number on the bottom, and I look forward to being a part of your great story. If it's a story of maintaining awesome health throughout your life, or raising kids to have that aspect of life, or whether it's your comeback story, whatever your story is, whatever great version of it you want, we're on your team. Look forward to seeing you next week here on Health Second Opinion.